Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Sid's Little Corner of the Internet. We've got another Transformers review coming your way. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Studio Series number 83 Soundwave. And this is Soundwave as we saw him in the first 3 minutes of the 2018 Bumblebee movie. So as we always do, let's go ahead and take a look at that packaging. And right up top, you have Transformers Bumblebee. And down here, you have some really nice Soundwave artwork. It is Studio Series number 83. He is Soundwave. On the side over here, you have that Soundwave artwork. On the back, you have big screen inspired Cybertron Falls. You've got some product shots. And the fate of Cybertron is sealed as Soundwave orders the Decepticons to launch a final attack, causing the Autobots to fall back. The backdrop is included. And down here, you have all your warnings. And you do have the sad baby. Always good to see him. Over here on the side, you've got a close-up of that beautiful face. He is a Voyager class. Up top, Bumblebee. Down low, manufacturing information. So that is it for the outside of the box. Let's go ahead and see what came inside that packaging. Behold, laid out before you is everything that came with Studio Series Soundwave, and we will start, as we always do, with the little sheet of warnings. And, of course, he comes with his instruction booklet. And then he comes with two main accessories, and we'll start right over here on the left with this rifle. Now, as far as rifles go, this thing looks pretty good. I think it could have benefited from maybe a different paint color, and if they were going to go with this color, maybe some paint apps in some of these molded areas. But for the most part, this is actually a really good-looking rifle. I like the molded-in detail on this, and I like the overall look of it. It just could have benefited from some more paint. All right, moving on to his shoulder-mounted missile launcher, his iconic weapon. This thing does look pretty cool. I mean, it's the same molded in color blue as Soundwave, which you would expect. And you've got a little bit of paint up there. And then, of course, up here on the front, you have that silver paint on that missile launcher. And I think that looks pretty good overall. Back here, you have some molded in details. And then you have just this gray handle. Now, this mount, this rotates, so depending on whether he's in vehicle mode or if he's in robot mode. Right now it's configured in the vehicle mode configuration, and all you need to do is just turn that, and then this little peg right here mounts into the back of the Soundwave figure, and then you're off to the races. All right, so that is it as far as all the accessories, except for what he's standing on right now, which is that backdrop, and this comes with all the Studio Series figures. And as I say every time, I appreciate that they do this. I simply don't have any room for this backdrop, so it's going to go back into the box, and the box is going to go into storage, but I do appreciate it. So that's it for everything that came inside that box. Let's go ahead and bring Mr. Soundwave in and take a look at his details. And here he is in all of his glory, Studio Series number 83 Soundwave. So let's go ahead and bring him in and take a nice close look at this guy. We'll start, as we always do, with that head sculpt. And I like what they've done here with this head sculpt. This is classic Soundwave, but with that modern take that we saw in that Bumblebee movie. And I think, for me, this head sculpt just works. The biggest complaint, I guess, that I would have for this is just that visor. The red that they chose for the visor, it seems almost kind of muted. It would have been nice if it was more vibrant to make him look a little bit more alive. But I think for the most part that this head sculpt came out looking really good. I mean, even on the side here, you've got nice paint applications. And it almost looks like in the back, this is kind of odd, it almost looks like they designed it for light piping, because this is actually translucent, but there is no light piping on this. And I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence whether or not he would have benefited from light piping or not. But like I say, I would have liked to have seen a slightly more vibrant red for those eyes or for that visor. But man, this head sculpt just looks gorgeous. And moving on down to the chest area. Very well done. Again, this is classic Soundwave, just with a little bit of modernization. And you do have the eject button up here. Push that, he pops open. And coming on down to that cod piece. The paint apps, I think, on this figure are pretty well done for a Voyager price point. So you've got all these touches of silver and everything in here. It looks really good. And then, of course, you've got the rewind and fast forward buttons. No play button on him, though. So these are vestigial, I suppose. So, and then coming down to the legs, this is where I think that they may have, I don't want to say cheapened out a little bit, but the legs could have benefited from some paint here. I mean, this is just white molded plastic. Not that it doesn't look good, but I think that it could have benefited. You've got some areas right in here that really would have popped. Now, however, you come down to the lower legs, and you do get those nice shins with that gold right inside, and some good detail all the way around, and you've got those big old Soundwave feet. So everywhere you look on this guy, I think the sculpt work is done very nicely. He's very easy on the eyes. He's good to look at. And you come up here, look at those hands and those forearms. Same thing. Good sculpt work, good details everywhere, all the way around. You've got nice silver paint in those elbows. And for the most part, they've minimized the hollow areas. I mean, you do have some hollow areas right in here, but they filled it in with some detail right there. So yeah, for the most part, I think very well done as far as all of that goes. And looking up underneath, you can see even on the sides here, he's got a good amount of molded in detail there, and up under here, looks good. And coming around to the back, he's pretty clean. I mean, and it makes sense. I know people have complained about his alt mode. I like the alt mode, but considering the fact that he's a Cybertronian Soundwave, they could pretty much make him whatever they wanted, which completely makes sense that you could have a nice, clean transformation on this with no kibble hanging off in bot mode. So very well done. All this work back here looks good. Detail up in there. And then coming down, you have some paint right there. So yeah, I mean, overall, the looks of this guy, I think he has a great shelf presence. He absolutely looks wonderful and is Soundwave through and through, and just a beautiful figure just to look at. And for that articulation, we'll start up here with the head. And the head's on a ball joint, so you do get a little bit of side to side, and you get a little bit of up and down, and you can turn that all the way around on that ball joint. And then you come down here to the shoulders. The shoulders are a little funky. It's just based on the way he's designed for transformation. So you have these flaps. If I lift these flaps up, you can kind of see what's going on under here. So to raise the shoulders up, everything happens at this hinge right here. So you're just going to raise this up, and that's how you're going to raise those shoulders. So that's as high as he goes. But then you also have this mechanism right under here that swings those arms. So you have this mechanism, which is independent from everything else, but then you can also swing those arms a full 360 around if you choose to do so. So just something to keep in mind there. And then coming down here to the elbow, you do get just over 90 degrees. You probably could have gotten more if not for those chunky Popeye style forearms right there, but it's screen accurate, and you know, I guess I'll take that over a little bit of articulation gained there. You do have two joints right in here for that as well. So you do have a joint right there, and then you have a joint down here. So that does help get a little bit over 90 for that bend. And then you do have your bicep rotation. You can go all the way around. And as far as the hands go, you have nothing. The only thing you get is just, if you want to call it wrist tilt, it's just for the transformation, where you can tilt those down just to hide those hands away. All right, and then coming on down, we'll count this as articulation. Let's go ahead. Push the button, and he opens up. And this is where Core Class Ravage will store. So once Core Class Ravage is released, that's where you can tuck him away right in there. And then coming down here, you do have a waist rotation. You just want to lift up his cod piece right there. And then you can see you can go all the way around with that waist. Let's go ahead and leave that up. And down here at the hips, you get almost a full split. So not quite a Van Damme, but a respectable amount right there. And then as far as kicking, he can kick forward that far. He can kick backward that far. So good flexibility as far as that goes as well. And then you do get thigh rotation, where you could go out that far and in that far before he starts running into himself. And down here at the legs, just like the elbows, you do have 2 points of rotation. So if it weren't for this geometry, you could get a nice deep knee bend, but these two joints are required for the transformation into his alt mode. And then down here at the feet, you've got a lot going on down here at the feet as far as articulation goes. So you can take those feet down that far. You can bring those feet up that far. you can tilt those feet in that far, and you can rotate those feet all the way around if you choose to do so. So you have a wide range of options when it comes to articulation in those feet. So overall, I think the articulation is good on Soundwave. A little funky in the shoulders, but just something to be aware of. You can work around it. It does make posing a little difficult just to try to make him look natural, but for the most part, I think articulation on this guy is pretty good. All right, so now that details on articulation are out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get into transformation and turn this guy into his flying toaster hovercraft. So I did it again. I almost forgot to talk about accessories. Let's talk about those before we get into the transformation. So there's a couple things that you can do with that rifle and with that shoulder cannon right there. So as you can see, you have a port here, you have a port here. Both of those are for the shoulder mounted cannon. So if you want to make him left-handed, right-handed, so on and so forth, you can do that. And you also have under the forearms, and we'll see that as he swings back around again, under the forearms, you do have a couple of 5mm ports where you can put that shoulder mounted cannon if you want to put him under his forearm, or if you want to take the rifle and plug it in right there. Totally up to you. But yeah, I think for the most part, the accessories look good on this guy. Unfortunately, I don't think he is effects compatible, at least with the War for Cybertron effects. I've tried a few. They don't fit. It almost looks like you would have a port up here. It almost looks like you would have a port right there on the end of that gun. Unfortunately, I just don't think he has it. Now, the only thing that he does have, because these are the 5mm ports, is you can take some of these and you can plug them in if you want to have him exploded or getting shot at, something like that. But for the most part, there's not a lot going on here for the effects. He does have a 3mm port in the back, so if you want to use a flight stand with him, feel free to do so. I do have my tiny flight stand that came with my other Studio Series Soundwave, but I just felt it was kind of inadequate for a Voyager class. Not a lot I'm going to get done there with this tiny flight stand. So just wanted to point those out to you. I think for the most part the accessories work. Would have been nice if they were effects compatible, but it is what it is. Now let's go ahead and get into that transformation. Now before we get started with the transformation on Soundwave, be sure to take off his shoulder cannon and remove his rifle out of his hands, so that way you're just left with Soundwave like this. Once you have him here, first thing you're going to want to do is take that head, rotate that head 180 degrees so he's looking behind himself. Now before we go any further, I do want to show you that for the next step for the shoulders, you have a couple of little tabs right here. We're going to be lining up those tabs to some slots inside these shoulders. So you're going to take these shoulders, and up here at this joint, you're going to rotate the entire arm up so it's facing forward like that. Once you do that, you're going to open these flaps. You got flaps at the top and the bottom, and then on these upper flaps, you actually see these slots right here. So these are the slots that are going to go over these tabs. Unfortunately, on my copy, I think I have a tolerance issue because both of my shoulders, when I bring them up, they don't tab securely in. So I can push them in, but they pop right back out on me. Hopefully that's not the case on yours, but just wanted to give you that heads up before we do it. So the next step that we're going to do is we're going to bring this shoulder up just like that. And if you need to, bring that shoulder out just a little bit more to make sure you've got clearance right in there for that tab in that slot. Bring it down, and then bring your arm down the rest of the way, and then tab that in. Hopefully yours stays. Mine is a little, just a tolerance issue. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to bring this entire arm up like that. We're going to lift those flaps on both sides, and then we're going to bring this in. Rotate that shoulder out just a little bit if you have to, so that way you can tab these in. So the ultimate goal of these two flaps is to hide the face when he's in alt mode, and even if you can't get yours tabbed all the way in, this is still mission accomplished. You can't see the face, so hopefully you don't have this kind of a situation going on, but if you do, it's not a deal breaker here for the transformation. All right, so the next step you're going to want to do is hide these hands. So you've got these flaps right here. You're just going to open these up on the forearms, and then you're going to slide those hands in and do the same thing on the other side. Now, once you've done that, you're going to bring these arms out. Move that flap out of your way so it doesn't get caught. Bring these arms out like that, and now you have slots right here that are going to go to these tabs right here. So just take note that these tabs actually are at a bit of an angle. They don't just come straight out from his body. So they're going to correspond with the angle of these arms. So you're going to rotate these arms in 90 degrees, and then you're going to bring this down, and then you're just going to line this up and then push that in. And you notice that when you do get that arm aligned, it's not sitting flush or parallel with the rest of the body. It's sitting at kind of a funky angle like that, but you are securely tabbed in. All right, so do the same thing over here. Rotate this around, bring this down, find that slot, line it up, give it a push, and man, I'd love it if my stuff stayed tabbed in, but it is what it is. All right, so for the most part, you have the upper body done. So now you're going to turn your attention down here to these legs. You can lift this up if you want to get it out of your way, or you can just leave it. It's really non-consequential to the transformation itself. So take these legs. We'll start over here. You're going to rotate those legs in. So the front is kind of facing to the inside. And once you do that, come back here. This is his calf. Give this a pull, open the calf up, and you've got these little winglets right in here. I call them winglets. Maybe there's something else, but that's what I call them. And then what this does is this creates a cavity right here so you can fold this leg in on itself. So go ahead and give that a fold. And we're just going to have it approximately like this. We're not going to lock anything in yet. The only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little winglet and I'm going to push that down. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to rotate that leg in. We're going to open up that calf, bring that winglet out, and then we're going to rotate all of this around, and I'm going to push that winglet down. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to flip him around 180 degrees so we see him from this side. And what you're going to want to do with these feet for now, just to get them out of your way, is lift them up like this and then turn them 90 degrees. So do the same thing over here, lift them up like that, turn it 90 degrees. Now this is where it gets tricky. This is where I may do an edit on you guys, but I'm going to show you what we're trying to accomplish here. So you have these two pieces, and they are going to tab in together. So once you get them tabbed in together, they're going to look something like that. But they're actually going to be in this area right here, kind of this T slot. So what you're looking to do is get these legs maneuvered to a point where you have all of this up and then tucked away in this T slot approximately like this. Now, it's actually going to angle down a little bit more, but that's what you're looking for, is approximately this angle right there, and then you're going to have these pushed together. So you're going to have something that looks sort of like that, but I'm going to do a quick edit here so you don't have to see me struggle. I will openly admit this is the least elegant part of the transformation. I'm not a big fan of this. I wish they would have found a better way to do this, but my edit is purely just for time saving. I'm not doing any magic here, anything that you won't struggle with. So let's go ahead and do that edit. We'll get this all positioned where it should be, and then I'll show you the next steps. All right, so now we have this all oriented the way that it should be, and I will give you a little bit of a close-up here. So mine does have just the ever slightest of a gap right there, but you're going to want to have that pushed up about that far, and you're going to want an angle on those legs of about like that much. So if you try to do this completely horizontally, nothing is going to line up correctly. So it really is just a matter of getting all of this oriented approximately like that so everything slides together for you. All right. The other struggle is going to be that your waist rotation joint is right here. So as you do this, this is going to move around on you. So that's kind of a pain, and it really becomes a pain for the next part, which is where we're going to align these feet up, the slots on these feet to the tabs on these arms right here. So if you're struggling with that, it's probably because you've got some waist misalignment, or you have misalignment in the angle of those legs. All right. So all that being said, the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to take these feet and we're going to put these feet on top of these arms. So you are going to correspond this slot to this tab right here. So what I like to do is I like to pull that foot up, and then I like to bring it out like that to give myself some clearance. So then I can bring this foot down, and when I bring that foot down, I am doing my best to try to align that without losing all my alignment here. So I don't know if I'll be able to capture this very eloquently on camera, but I will do what I can. So I'm going to bring that down and line this up. There we go. Give that a little bit of a push. Don't lose what I have here. And then I'll do the same thing over here. So I'm going to bring this up, pull it out like that. And then I'm going to bring this down. And I'm going to align that tab in that slot right there. Give that a squeeze and make sure I have everything else in place. So I don't think I lost anything here. So you should have something that looks like this. All right. And then while I'm down here, I'm going to take these kneecaps and I'm going to bring these in. So per the instructions, it does want you to draw those in just like that. Now, the last couple of steps that we have, we're going to take this little guy right here. We're going to lift that little guy up and then give that a pull, and that's going to allow us to bring this entire assembly up like that. So next step is for this little guy, you're going to want to rotate him 180 degrees right here and then bring him up. Bring this 180 degrees, and then you're going to drop all of this. So you have a couple of tabs there that go to these slots, and then you have a tab right there that goes to this slot. So then you're going to bring these down. I got to get this all the way up. Sorry, make sure it's all the way up like that. And then bring that down and give that a squeeze. Give that a squeeze there. And there you have the upper part completed. And for the most part, this completes Soundwave into his hovercraft mode, whatever you want to call it. The final steps are just to add his rifle and to add his shoulder cannon onto the sides. So you do have a couple of ports. You can use these ports right here to add them on. Then you can have something like this. All right, so that is it for transformation into robot mode. So let's go ahead and just jump into his details in this mode. Now, as far as those details go for his alt mode, we'll jump into it. I just want to say real quick, I like this alt mode. I know there are a lot of different opinions out there. Personally, I like it. He can be whatever he wants to be on Cybertron, and he chooses to be this. And cool. I can dig it. I like it. So let's go ahead and jump into those details. And, you know, it's not going to be vastly different from his robot mode. You're still seeing a lot of the robot parts here. But looking at him right here, this is where he does have a little bit of that peekaboo going on with that face. If only my stuff would stay tabbed in. Now, this is all new, so normally this is on the inside of the robot mode, so you get a little bit of extra detail there. You get that nice gold. And then you get there's ticks of red right down here. And yeah, this guy is his molded in detail, the sculpted parts, everything looks really good on this guy. I suppose this is what he should look like on Cybertron, and you've got those nice paint apps right there with the silver. So I can definitely get on board with this mode. And let's take that gun off just for a second so we can see those details in there. And there he is from the back. I think for the most part, for whatever he is, I think he cleans up pretty good. And then down here underneath, it's a whole lot of yoga Soundwave, and that's okay. But yeah, I like this guy. I like him in this mode. Obviously, I'll be displaying him in his robot mode because that's what we're all paying for. None of us are really paying for this mode, but I can appreciate the fact that he's a transformer. He transforms into this, and yeah, I like it. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll bring in some comparisons, and we'll see how his alt mode stacks up to some of the other figures out there. So for our first comparison, I figured I would start with another Cybertronian Soundwave figure. So this is Soundwave as we saw him from the Fall of Cybertron line. For our next comparison, here we see the Bumblebee movie Soundwave next to the Studio Series B127 Bumblebee. Bumblebee as we saw him on Cybertron in the first 3 minutes of the movie. Next up is Studio Series Thrust as we saw him from the Bumblebee movie. Next up is the Studio Series Shatter from the Bumblebee movie, and this of course is as we saw her in her Earth Jet mode. And for our final all mode comparison, here we see the Studio Series Soundwave next to G1 Soundwave. And it just occurred to me that if I still had my Star Wars Snowspeeder from when I was a kid, I would bring that in as a point of comparison because, by golly, he sure looks a lot like one. But I don't have that snow speeder anymore, so that is the end of the alt mode comparison. So let's jump back into transformation and get him back in his bot mode. So to get Soundwave back into his bot mode, the first thing you're going to want to do, if you haven't already done so, is remove that rifle and remove the shoulder cannon and just set those off to the side. All right, and from here, you're going to take these feet, you're going to lift these feet up off those arms and just flip them down and out of your way like that. Do the same thing over here. And once you've done that, now you can grab this area right here. Just give that a little bit of a pull just to loosen all that up, and that gives you a little bit of space right here for those legs. And while you're right here, go ahead and grab this little spot and pull all this up like that. And then rotate this around 180 degrees. And then take this piece, rotate that down like that, rotate that 180 degrees, and then you can collapse this all back down, and then you've got a slot and a tab right there. Close that up, and then you're all done with that area. So now you can flip him around, and then you can turn your attention to these legs. So as you start spreading these legs out, be sure to take these little winglets, spread those little winglets out so they don't catch on your legs, and then you can bring those down the rest of the way, and then take those little winglets and push them in right there, and then collapse that calf up, and then you have that calf all done. And then take this foot, it's essentially just his ankle tilt right there. You're just going to tilt that down and then swing this leg forward. All right, so we're going to do the same thing over here. Make sure you've got that little winglet out of your way, and then take this leg and swing it down as such. Take the winglet, swing it in, and then close that calf up, and then bring the foot down on that ankle tilt, straighten that out, and then swing this leg forward, and then you have both of those legs done. Now you can turn your attention to the upper body. So take these, I'm going to go ahead and take the hands out now because the arms are attached. It makes it a little bit easier. Flip these open, and then you've got these little notches right here. You're just going to put your fingernail on it and bring those hands out, and do the same thing over here. So get your fingernail on that notch, bring them out, close those up, and now just pop those arms off those tabs. And then you're going to come up here, and you're just going to give that a little twist to remove that, and then bring those shoulders down. So give that a little twist to disconnect your tab in your slot. Bring that down. Then you can close your flaps up right here. Bring your arms out as such, and then swing them down. And do the same thing over here. There we go. This one was a little stubborn. And then turn your elbows so they're facing properly. And your last step is taking that head, turning that head around 180 degrees, and there you have Soundwave back in his bot mode. So getting him back into his bot mode is way easier than getting him in his alt mode. His alt mode can be really finicky just to align everything up, but really you're just exploding him here in this mode, and you get him where he needs to be, and it's pretty quick and easy and kind of fun. So that's it for the transformation into bot mode. So what we'll do now is we will bring in some bot mode comparisons and see how he looks. For our first robot mode comparison, here we see the Studio Series Bumblebee Soundwave next to Soundwave as we saw him from the Fall of Cybertron line. Our next comparison is Soundwave as we saw him from the Transformers Prime universe. And for our next comparison, here we see the Studio Series Soundwave next to a couple of Soundwaves from the Transformers War for Cybertron line. So the big guy is the Earthrise War for Cybertron Soundwave, and the little guy is the Core Class Soundwave from War for Cybertron Kingdom. Next comparison is the Studio Series 51 Soundwave. Next up is the Studio Series 62 Soundwave. And for our next comparison, here we have the Studio Series 83 Soundwave next to my original G1 Soundwave. And for our final bot mode comparison, here we have just a family photo, if you will, of the Bumblebee movie Studio Series figures. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. There are others, particularly many different iterations of Bumblebee himself, But I figured I would just throw this together so you could see how Soundwave looks compared to some of those other Bumblebee Studio Series figures between the Deluxe class and the Voyager class, and see how he stacks up. That wraps up the bot mode comparisons, so let's get into those final thoughts. Alright, so let's talk about the Studio Series number 83 Soundwave as we saw him in the Bumblebee movie. In short, I like this figure. I think he looks great, and I think he's going to have great shelf presence, and I think there's a lot of good playability here. So I would definitely, in short, recommend this figure, but let's go ahead and quantify that a little bit. Start as we always do with the aesthetics. Yeah, I mean, just look at him. Bot mode is amazing. I love Soundwave anyway. I have a bias for Soundwave, but gosh, this guy looks good. This just captures the look of Soundwave, and I absolutely adore it. The alt mode, it is what it is. You know, it's, as I said earlier, he can be whatever he wants to be because it's Cybertron, and dream big, right? So I like the alt mode. I think it's a pretty cool hovercraft. I know others may have differing opinions, but overall, I like the aesthetics of this guy, particularly in the bot mode. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on aesthetics. And moving on to articulation, I think this guy is very well articulated. Those feet in particular are everything that I want in a Transformers figure. I mean, you've got the ankle tilt, you've got the up and down, you can rotate the feet. There's hardly anything that you can't do, and it really helps with the posability there. He's not really limited anywhere in his articulation. He does have some weird shoulders, so you got to work around that a little bit. And I guess on a wish list, it would have been nice to have had an ab crunch. But overall, articulation on this guy, it's hard to want for more. So I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10 on articulation. And moving on to the accessories, yeah, they're okay for the price point. They don't get me too excited. He does have his iconic shoulder-mounted cannon, and I think that was done really well. I mean, it's got those paint applications and everything on it. It looks really good. But that rifle, it's meh. It's molded really well. A great sculpt work, but it could have used a little bit more paint. It's just kind of drab beyond that. So as far as the accessories go, I think for the Voyager price point, they're okay. I'm going to give this guy an 8 out of 10 for accessories. As I always say, would have been nice if he would have had blast effect compatibility, or if he would have come with his own effects. Just something to, help make those accessories even more playable. So moving on to quality. Quality is not bad. Out of the box, he came with everything he was supposed to. All my joints are nice and stiff on this guy. He holds poses. I don't have any defects as far as the paint applications. I don't have any molding or sculpt work defects. The biggest complaint that I have, and frankly it is kind of a big one for me, is the tabs on those shoulders where they tab in to hide the face. Thank goodness it is not a functional quality issue, so I can still hide the face and all is well in alt mode, but come on, those tabs are too big to fit into those slots, and they just pop right back out. So I'm going to ding him a little bit on overall quality there. I'm going to give him an 8 out of 10 for that. And bringing us to our last point, the overall value. This one's always the most subjective one. Absolutely, I agree that it is. For me, I think he was worth it. I picked this guy up. I was lucky enough to find him in the wild at a Walmart, and he was $30 US at a Walmart. It wasn't a hard pill to swallow, but I'm seeing the slow price creep of the Transformers figures, and although I'm okay with $30, I think they're really starting to push it. So for me, I was okay with it, especially with this figure and with the shelf presence that he brings. So I'm going to give him an overall value of the 8 out of 10 for this figure, which brings us to a grand total of 42 out of a possible 50 points, or an 84% overall. So I can easily recommend this figure if you don't already have him. I do think he's worth it, and I think he just looks gorgeous on the shelf. He is, from a sculpt work and a shelf presence standpoint, he is easily one of the best figures that we've gotten as far as the Studio Series Bumblebee movie goes. So with that, guys, I'm going to wrap up the review I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some good information out of it. I hope it helps you make a purchasing decision here. And if not, I just hope you enjoyed watching the video. As I always say, thanks for the support. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and leave me some comments. Let me know what you think about this guy. Soundwave's always a favorite of mine. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Till we see you guys in the next review. Take care.